Hello guys, welcome to another weekly breakdown video. Today I have came back with another weekly breakdown, which is the week of third week of February. As you can see, if I show you the news, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there is no news. Last week was a full high impact news driven week, but this week, yeah, also you can relate, right? One week there was so much of news, and the next week has no news at all. So if you can avoid trading or avoid taking unnecessary losses in weeks like this, when there is high impact news all over the week, then you can make a ton of percentage in those kinds of weeks where there are no high impact news and the banks are open. Yeah, so also on the forex my FX book calendar, Thursday there was news, Friday there was news, but not that sort of a high impact. Whereas on Forex Factory, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday there was no news. Only on Thursday there was news, so it was a higher probability week to trade. And the weekly analysis is like, okay, so let me show you the call out. Whenever there is SMT between the previous week highs and lows, for example in this week, the previous week low in DXY was swept very early, whereas GU didn't sweep the previous week high, so it gave us so much confirmation that it can eventually go and take that, which it did perfectly. So yep, I will show you that why I have written that, no problem. So yeah, that's a very true statement right there. And whenever SMT happens, yep, that works. SMT does works with the bias, with the trend. You should use it with the bias and with the trend. And my higher time frame bias was DXY was bearish because of how this weekly candle closed, and from where it's rejecting, you can argue there's a daily supply zone right there. And GU bias was bullish because it was reacting off of this daily demand. I will show you that. So weekly bias was bullish on GU and bearish on DXY, right? So it's clear. So now going to the daily time frame, this is when I go to the daily time frame to look for market structure. And if I see the market structure, the market was trending up and it accumulated in an area, and now it is lower highs and lower lows. On the lower time frame, in the daily time frame, the market structure is bearish, lower highs, lower lows, and still now the market is bearish. So this week is going to be very tricky because the daily market structure is different, the weekly bias is different, right? So also we see the bias on the weekly, we see the market structure on the daily. So whenever that's aligning, that's our high probability trade. So yep, in this case, for now at least, the daily bias going on Monday was bullish according to how this Friday candle and Thursday candle closed right here. It was unable, or you can use any other words, it was unable to break past these lows right here to break structure to the downside. So that was one of the confluence that it might go to the upside now. So going on the daily time frame on DXY, also the DXY made sense to go down because of how this Wednesday, Thursday and Friday candle closed here. Huge bearishness in the market, and also if the market body closes below here, there will also be a market structure shift, and yeah, which will be a change of character to the downside. And on Monday, going on Monday, my bias was bearish on DXY. So after deciding my weekly bias and my daily bias, I go to the 4-hourly time frame to mark my previous week highs, lows, and also to look for any market structure shift or any fair value gaps. It's the same sort of analysis in every single time frame, but every single time frame the same analysis determines different things because of the data and the importance that data consists, right? So I also insist you guys to do the same, and yeah, it works. And on the 4-hourly, the market structure was clearly bullish, not bullish nor bearish. So obviously the 4-hour didn't give us anything. So now this is when I go to the 1-hourly, and on the hourly, as you can see, there was a clean demand zone. On Monday I was looking for buys, there was no news, so obviously I was clearly looking for demand zones. So this was the high that caused this low right here, lower low, and the moment it breaks past this high right here, there is a market structure shift and there is a higher high. So now I will wait for a higher low to then enter the market, to then continue heading towards the upside with the bias being bullish. So that is when I go to the 30 minutes and the 1-hourly, but obviously I will not show you that right now because this is a weekly breakdown video. So on Monday I was looking for buys from this sort of demand and also this sort of fair value gap. Okay, so I waited for the Asian range to close because until and unless the Asian range closes, we can't do nothing. So this is when I start to go, after the Asian range closes, I start to go to lower time frame to see for any zones that are closer than, because the Asian range closed here, right? So does it make sense for the market to go all the way down here and up here? Yep, it doesn't make sense, but the market can do it. The market can do anything. We don't control the market. The banks, the big banks, the hedge funds control the market, right? So according to how the Asian range closes, I refine my zones. So this is when I go to the M15 time frame to refine my zone. So this was the zone I was looking for. This was the liquidity made on 330. And also I have noticed another thing was, whenever the market opens, yeah, on that day, there is a huge amount of liquidity in that candle. So the market is opening right now at 3:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, because the daylight savings are off and it is February. Soon it's gonna be start on March, but yeah, until now it has not started. So yep, I will consider this as liquidity and something like that. I was looking for something like that, but I guess I didn't got it. I did got it, yeah. Look, my M15 demand zone was mitigated, but this was very late in the day, which was 10. So 10 p.m. I don't trade. This is when I get out of the chart. So the move did happen. The demand zone did get respected. The demand zone that I have marked did get respected, but yeah, it was very late on the day, so I didn't trade it. And yes, so going on Tuesday now. Tuesday also there is no news, as I've shown you guys. And now the daily bias for Tuesday. Monday was bullish, but now going on, after how this Monday candle closed, my daily bias for Tuesday will be bearish, which is not aligning with the weekly bias being bullish, right? So that is when it gets a little bit tricky to trade. And yeah, look at this. Even Monday closed bearish on DXY and bearish on GBP USD. Sometimes the markets will do the same thing like that. That is when you don't trade. You just don't trade, or you trade with the higher time frame bias. So the higher time frame bias on DXY is bearish. So obviously on the higher time frame bias on GU is bullish. The higher time frames, as in the weekly. So if you were looking for something, that would be buys. If I was looking for something, I would look for something to buy right here from a demand zone. Obviously we buy from a demand zone, right? So also the market is shifted structure on Tuesday, it seems. So this is when I go to the lower time frames, like the hourly, and on the hourly there was a change of character right here, and this was the higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and waiting for how Tuesday will play out here. Let's see. So this is when on Tuesday there was no sort of demand zone right here to trade. There was a hourly fair value gap, you can argue, but I don't like trading fair value gaps that much. How much I like the demand zones, because of we don't know where the move might happen from. So this was a continuation model on Tuesday, which I guess I didn't took it. I was not able to take this continuation model because of how this candle closed, and on Tuesday was a no trading day for me. So now going on Wednesday. So now look, if you were patient enough to wait for Monday and Tuesday to close, for Wednesday there is a clear bias going on Wednesday right here. And on Wednesday there is no high impact news again. So this is when I go to DXY to confirm my bias. DXY, the bias is bearish, or aligning with the weekly bias, right? So it is higher probability. And on GBP USD the bias is bullish, the weekly bias is bullish, the daily bias is bullish. So it is also aligning. So now this is when we like to trade. I guess I took the trade on Wednesday. Let me show you why, how. And on the 4 hourly there was a market structure shift, change of character. So this was also a very strong H4 demand zone right here. So the market, that is more of a swing trade concept right here. It can have a move something like that. I have seen it, it works, but obviously we are not a swing trader, we are intraday trader, so we wait. Look, this is when the market literally, there was a lots of momentum. So on Wednesday I wait for the Asian range to close as always, and I decide my zones to trade. Okay, so on Tuesday I took a trade here, right? But which was a continuation model, and I was not confident in taking this trade. So this was a M15 demand with the Asian range. It was a continuation model with within the demand zone in the Asian range. Yep. So on Wednesday I was looking for a buys. Obviously if I'm looking for buys, Asian low liquidity sweep, previous structural liquidity was there, and also there was a M15 demand right here, because this was the closest demand zone on the M15. So this is when I waited for the inducement to happen. My M15 demand got mitigated, the previous structural liquidity got swept, and the move happened at 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And also I've learned one more thing here, was the move doesn't need to always happen in your kill zone timing. It can happen anytime. So whenever the market is entering your marked zones, so it can happen in any time. So you have to be very careful. And whenever it mitigates the zone that you have marked, that is when you that is when you start seeing the potential entries in the market. So I did the same thing. So this was a winning trade on Wednesday, which gave us a 1:3 risk to reward. So beautiful trade on Wednesday. This is when I go to Thursday. On Thursday, my bias was again bullish. Why? Because the market is closing bullish, and until and unless the market is not showing me that it wants to go down like it did on Monday, my bias will remain bullish on daily bias, right? We decide our daily bias seeing the previous daily candles, and also here you can see Wednesday closed as a bearish candle on DXY, which is also very close to changing character right here to the downside, and it is also looking like a head and shoulders pattern to me. And this is when I go on Thursday looking for buys again. So obviously I am looking for buys from demand zones. There is H4 demand right here. So on H1 I go to look for the Asian range to close. So on Thursday the Asian range closed something like that. So obviously according to the Asian range we decide our zones, right? So this is when this was a winning trade right here. There was no demand zones, I guess, in the day. Yep, the demand zones were not clear, because a demand zone or a supply zone is only strong if it is with the bias, it has a market structure shift, it has led to a market structure shift, and it has a huge fair value gap. That are the 3 criteria that I use to define if order block is valid or not. So this is when I wait for the Asian range to close, and I was looking for a trade if this liquidity will get swept. There was no demand zones to trade from, no high probability demand zones to trade from. So on Thursday also there was no trade day, and also there was lots of news on Thursday. So very high chance of markets being manipulated, and it was a continuation model, and the market didn't give us our trade. There was fair value gaps all around here on the M15, but literally it didn't get respected. Any of the fair value gaps didn't got respected, so I didn't took the trade. Simple. So now this is when I go to Friday, and even now how this Thursday candle closed, it is more of a bearish candle than a bullish candle. Why? Because of the wick to the upside. So now we go to DXY, and DXY has closed as a bullish pin bar. Clearly DXY has closed as a bullish pin bar right there, and GBP USD is also an indecision candle. This is not giving any decision, but in Euro USD it is a bearish pin bar right here. So whenever the DXY and GU bias is not clear, we tend to go to EU and then decide our bias. So I was liking more sells on Friday rather than buys because of how the daily candle closed, and the daily is more important than the lower time frames, as we know that by now, right? So this is when I go to the lower time frames and mark my supply zones for selling, demand zones for buying. And yeah, on Friday also there was no news, so coulda, woulda, shoulda. So I was looking to trade this supply zone on M30 time frame. It was an M30 supply zone because of this market structure shift. The market structure shifted from here, lower highs, lower lows. So the market structure shift, there was a market structure shift, huge fair value gap, and the bias being bearish. So everything we want to see on an order block was her, right? So if I am looking for sales, I wait for Asian high to get swept. After the Asian high gets swept, I take the trades in the zone that I've marked. So this was the M30 supply zone. And also one thing, right, whenever you are marking an M30 supply zone, it is high probability that the M30 time frame will give you the entry. M30 time frame will give you the candles that are rejecting, if it makes sense. So this was exactly what happened. We got our 1:3. My bias was not clear, like it was not aligning with the weekly bias being bullish, but even though it was aligning with the daily bias, so I took a small position right here, And yeah, that was a winner. So at the end of the day, a win is a win. Yep. So this was a week for you guys. This was the weekly breakdown. After many days, finally the market has started doing something. This was something fuck all. Nothing. There was nothing here, but now the market is literally trending to the upside. Not one of the cleanest, but yep, it has improved a lot. And now going on the weekly, how this candle closed was, it closed a very better than all of this, right? It was a good bullish candle. So going on next week, my bias will be bullish, and on DXY my bias will be bearish. Simple as that. And the weekly bias, interesting, it is not a bearish candle, and here it is. What the fuck? So interesting. So next week my bias is, I guess, not clear, but I will start my backtesting again from Monday. So yep, stay tuned. Until then.